And before I try to answer that question, I want to share my story, as I hope it relates to a lot of you. As a side note, there is a one-page handout in your bulletin, but you don't need to use that just yet. Okay, so again, I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and up until college, I never actually really went to church. Having said that, I do feel that I've always felt that God was part of my life in so many different, but really subtle ways. The province of Ontario, Canada, was originally settled by Europeans, which had a strong Catholic upbringing, and such. It was very normal for our public-funded schools to acknowledge God's presence. Starting when I was young, every school day we actually would recite the Lord's Prayer, and then at Christmas time, during the Christmas season, we'd actually all get to go to the church and sing Christmas carol, acknowledging God, just like we do at New Life. Secondly, for me, we actually had a nun come over to our church on a weekly basis and teach us French. I don't recall her ever sharing the gospel with my family or I. I was relatively young at the time. But it was clear that Sister Frances was reaching out to us in love and kindness without ever asking for anything else in return. So with that background, I do remember believing in God but not knowing his earthly name was Jesus. When I was young, I was generally freaked out by the concept of death and would pray for help or even material things or financial security. In high school, I did find a printout of John 3:16, and I ended up taping that to my wall. I had no idea what it meant, but I do recall my older sister calling me a hypocrite by having that Bible verse in my room whenever I would lose my temper. When I went to college, I attended a United Church on campus, which made me feel good, but then again, I don't ever recall them explaining who Jesus was or having an altar call. And as another sign that I didn't know Jesus, I would go back to my earthly ways as soon as we left service. My wife, Kate, was raised a Catholic, and once we started dating, I joined her in attending a Catholic church in Toronto. I don't remember much, but I felt it was very ritualistic, and didn't feel very connected with God or the other people within the church. From all the church gossip that I would hear, I remember judging them for the hypocrisy of acting holy on Sunday, but totally different the other 6 days of the week. We moved down from Toronto to Houston in 2008, and we did try several Catholic churches, but found it was difficult to make connections, either because the message was in Korean, or which I don't speak, or we were not willing to break out of our comfort zone and introduce ourselves and find a community. Our breakthrough came when Kate was referred to Peter Jung's Bluefish Pediatrics to take care of our then one-year-old. Peter and Sandy Peck took the time to ask about our backgrounds, and then we were then invited to house church in October 2008. Kate wanted to go, but I was really hesitant as I grew up watching the Jimmy Swaggart and Tammy Lee Baker scandals play out on tabloid TVs like Hard Copy, and that just really did not help my view that most Baptist leaders were essentially thieves or scam artists. I also wanted to have fun and maybe have a few drinks, and the last thing I wanted to do was be around people that were really different than me. We ended up going to Peter and Chris's house church, and it did take a couple of months for me to warm up to the people and how much they seemed to enjoy talking about Jesus. At my very first house church, I remembered Faye Lee starting word time with reading John 1, which is, "In the beginning was a Word, and the Word was with God." And then she asked us who or what the Word was. If you don't know who Faye is, she's a professor that teaches at a college, and I thought she might be focused on philosophy or religion or something serious. We had some very serious-looking people in that house church, and I could have sworn I all saw them nodding sagely, contemplating which I thought was a super deep question. During sharing time, someone would share or started sharing about some family issues, and then they started crying and getting upset. All I could think of was that while I enjoy a free meal, a free dinner, and it was really nice, that house church really wasn't my thing, and I really needed to get out of this room. But thankfully, I was not brave enough to stand up and walk out, and while I really did not want to try another house church, I think Kate insisted, and so that's the rest of this story. The rest is history. Over the next year, Peter and Chris were really patient shepherds, answering my questions and slowly breaking down my disbelief that Jesus was God because he had never really spoken to me, or at least I thought. I appreciated that they did not have all the answers, and that at times they were not on the same page. But in the middle of 2009, I chose to take that leap of faith and realize that I could still accept Jesus in my life, even though I had not hit a rock bottom or have one of those aha moments where I could hear his voice in a manner that I thought I would. Thus, in 2009, I was baptized here at New Life. So with that, let's talk about the benefits of serving in ministry, and this is where you folks can use the handout and follow along. Number one, paying it forward for those who helped us. Paying it forward for those who helped us. Even outside my house church, so many people found ways to show us generosity. It sounds corny, but America, and specifically Texas, really is an amazing land of opportunity. As most of you know, most people are not necessarily from Houston, but came here to make a living. And as such, I think they understood what it feels like to be an outsider, or feel like an outsider, and then combine that with a desire to follow God and be generous. They found ways to share with people like us. And that's what makes New Life special. People learn how to generally use their skills and talents to build God's kingdom. I see people like Joey Kim use his dentistry practice to help those in need. I see people like Peter Jung using his pediatrics business to reach out to non-believers just like we were and invite them to house church, but also mentor pre-med students that come through the local schools and allow them to put relevant work experience on their resumes. On a more personal note, in our early years in Houston, I can remember people like Wayne and Cindy Kim and Ray and Ari Chang opened their respective houses to us during Thanksgiving and allowed us to celebrate with their families. On a more individualistic note, people like James Kim, he learned that I liked or really loved golf for a while and would invite me to play with him when he did belong to Houstonian. And when our son was born in 2009, several families set up a meal train to help keep us fed. So with those examples, how can I not serve, right? It's like, believe it or not, I'm not a complete sociopath, and I really, really just want to say how much I appreciate what all of those people have done and want to do the same for others. All right? So point number two, serving in ministry keeps you busy and away from temptation. Serving in ministry and keeps you busy and away from temptation. And the reason I'm repeating this is that I taught through Class 301 for the first time, call it 2 months ago, and I thought it went pretty well, but then I had to stop reading the class evaluations about halfway through because everyone said I spoke way too fast, and they couldn't keep up with like when I had to fill in the blanks and such. So I'm learning, and I want to apologize to those folks that had to take that class as it was my first time. Okay, so again, point number two, serving in ministry keeps you busy and away from temptation. There is a saying, idle hands is a devil's tool. I Googled that, and the first thing that popped up was that a bored person is most likely to find mischief. And this is where I may sound a little bit like Pastor Eric, but I think we're going to record the second service, so it's okay. In short, got too much time in your hands? We can fix that. Addicted to TikTok, Reels, Korean drama, or even, God forbid, pornography? Don't do it. Join a ministry, and that can help fix it too. Staying at home too long by yourself really isn't good for anyone. And so not only will the ministry keep you busy, but you will also be surrounded by brothers and sisters who want to be better and help knock down those strongholds. Point number three, it is an opportunity to use the gifts that you have been given. It's an opportunity to use the gifts that you've been given. 1 Peter 4:10 says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in various forms. We learn in 301 that the Greek word for ministry is diakonos, apologies to the Greek people, which means to serve. All right? A derivative of that word is servant. So ministry is what God has given us to serve him and the needs of others. I mentioned before that in Class 301, that Class 301 helps you discover your spiritual gifts. It helps give you an identity, identify what you're good at and what you have a heart for. We believe that God has given us all spiritual gifts, and so we ask that you please not waste them or be selfish with them. New Life has been blessed with a lot of smart people with very good jobs or careers, and we have seen so many of these people use them to further God's kingdom. For me, since joining the ministry team this year, I got to witness how much people like Kat and Eddie Lee have dedicated themselves into serving our team and the church. While they are very successful from an earthly perspective, I've seen them use their organizational and leadership talents to essentially put together things like game night and the upcoming fall festival. So hopefully you all have had someone who has helped you get where you are, whether it's in school or in your career. Please remember them. And if you don't have that person or mentor, choose to be better and do that for someone else. Point number 4, it's an opportunity for you to be God's witness to others. It's an opportunity for you to be God's witness to others. Matthew 5:14, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. I truly believe that New Life has been blessed spiritually and even financially. Pastor Eric, several years ago, felt called for New Life to become a resource-based church to support the growth of house church, and it really feels like we're in the middle of something, in the middle of accomplishing that. We are going from hosting 2 seminars last year, for the last couple of years. We did 3 this year, and the plan is to do 4 next year. From the ones that I got to attend, we got to share our experiences and build up those from other cities who are struggling or in the beginning of building their house church model. For those of you who have been blessed and had prayers answered, we encourage you not to be shy about what God has done for you. In short, if you have been blessed, bless others. Point number 5, doing ministry will bring you closer to God. Doing ministry will bring you closer to God. A couple of weeks ago, Pastor Eric discussed Daniel's character and mentioned the concept of being able to build your confidence in God by experiencing Him as you obey Him in doing small things. In terms of obedience in ministry, when I first got to church and before taking Class 301, I was encouraged to join a church ministry and thus joined the sports ministry team thinking that it would be something I would enjoy. I also began volunteering whenever they needed help, whether it's for things like the crawfish boil, or cooking or cleaning during our seminars. I did these things because I wanted to give back and do my part, but I also benefited from as it was a great way to meet people. After accepting Christ, I decided to follow Him by accepting whatever serving opportunities came my way, and then hope He would reveal Himself to me or speak to me in different ways. In other words, I decided to be obedient. These one-off assignments eventually turned into serving as an NLK teacher for a couple years and then going on various mission trips to Vietnam and Mexico. Volunteering, when it comes, whether it's through the crawfish boil or helping with our seminars, even do a short-term trip, these are our examples of ministry. People may think of ministry as people selling their possessions and going off to far lands and spreading the gospel. But for most of us, it's also something as simple as opening the door and welcoming people to our church on Sunday morning, or decorating our sanctuary during the holiday seasons. But it can also be more complex, like being a project manager who has to put together the annual church retreat at Camp Allen, or being part of the leadership team who's running effectively a nonprofit organization that has a multi-million-dollar budget. And through each of these opportunities, and praying for others, slowly but surely, I realized that God was talking to me, not necessarily in a direct manner, but more by answering not just my prayers, but some big prayers for others that we were all praying for. I saw people cured of terrible diseases when we were told there was no hope, couples who prayed for a child for many years, eventually getting pregnant, and for those without jobs getting opportunities literally out of nowhere. Point number 6, you will gain friendship and community. Friendship and community. There are just so many examples in the Bible of people doing ministry and life together. Again, from the book of Daniel, we learn that he lived and suffered with his friends. Jesus had his 12 apostles. In the book of Acts, Paul mentions numerous people he did ministry. And just like Paul, there are people that love their house church, and there are some who do not. For those that want more, there's really no better way to join in ministry and meeting new people. And yes, it can be awkward at first, and you may not really want to do it, but it really is the best way. There are so many people from different circumstances in life that you would have not met in any circumstances. For Kate and I, honestly, we did not want to join NLK Kids. Who wants to take care of other people's kids? For those that know me, I struggle with patience with those that don't listen, and God knows kids don't listen sometimes. But without volunteering, honestly, we would have never crossed paths with many of you, all right? And I specifically think of people like Bao and Jennifer, who we basically started with because their son Dash and our son Noah were in the same grade, and so we basically grew up with them. Also people like Daniel and Jennifer Park. Our daughter Mina is the same age as Kayla, and honestly, we've known each other for now what seems like 15 years. So, honestly, it's just been such a blessing to meet so many people, and we do consider them friends to this day. Where else would we get these chances to make these friends with people who love God so much? 7, and the last bullet point, is access to your pastors and leaders. Pastors and leaders. Where else do we get this access? Where else do we have access to people like Pastor Sang and Pastor Mia, who have been personal friends to so many people before getting called to the roles as pastors? Not only are they pretty great people, but they are praying, they're setting spiritual foundation and helping guide our kids until they actually graduate college. And also for us, we have a pastor who gets to church at 5 a.m. every day, almost every day, and covers us in prayers for at least a couple hours per session. As a shepherd, we're supposed to send in our house church ministry journals, which include prayer requests. I know that he's praying for us because whenever we send our house church update, the next week I get a printed copy from him knowing that he has prayed for us that week. So in summary, the short and simple answer as to why we serve comes down to 2 things. We should be glorifying God, and secondarily, edifying others. For those of you who believe, I hope you will be obedient and do what is asked of you. And for those of you who are struggling with your faith, I hope that you will have an obedient heart and just do the same things that are being asked for, but also at the same time ask for God to reveal himself to you. So, let us pray.